What kind of bets do you want to make?
I'm thinking at least a bed.
A bed? Bed or dead hookers? Well, I tell you this, it has a second set of doors.
Oh yeah. Kind of thought
It has a seat. It literally has a seat way up there. Well, there's no reason to run it in here. Speedometer's missing. Gauge on or off.
well.
No. I just want to take video of it so I can go home and look at it later.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's like a Holly
2300.
2300 or an auto. Is it a Holly or is it an Autolite?
I'm pretty sure it's a Holly.
I mean, all Autolites look just like it, but. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Ugly Jeeps. Tonight we're in my home garage working on our 1951 CJ3A project, also known as John Wayne. I got this Jeep about a year ago. I started fiddling with it. A lot of stuff came up that made me just way too busy. So I kind of mothballed it back in my other garage. I dug it out a couple of weeks ago and I made some room in my garage right here to work on it. I got a few things planned. First thing I'm going to do though is tear apart the Jeep and get rid of some of the old man mods and other horribly done things. But I figured before I get too far into tearing it apart any further, I would do a walk around and show you exactly what I have planned and what we're just working with, because this thing is kind of like halfway cool, kind of halfway hack. So anyway, okay, you guys have probably seen this thing in a few YouTube shorts with a big, really weird, ridiculous soft top. The soft top was the first thing to go. It had like a full-size Chevy bench seat that was hanging literally off of the back of the Jeep. That had to go. It had like 6 gun racks in it. The Jeep came from Nevada and I guess it was probably used on a ranch for hunting or something. But just to go over the specs, 1951 CJ3A. It has a Ford 289 V8. It has a 3-speed T90. It still has a Dan 18 transfer case, 25 front end, 44 rear end, and just a whole bunch of weird modifications and like why stuff done to it. The motor was put in pretty well, but there's just a bunch of other stuff that they really didn't do so good. The steering looks to be like from a Chevrolet Vega or something. It's got a center link, it's got inner and outer tie rods, it's got an idler arm, it's got a pitman arm. Just got so much stuff going on with it that it's kind of a handful and scary to drive down the road. So that's going to be one of the first things they change about it. I already put a Chevy 1-wire alternator. It had the wiring is just a horrible mess. They have like a Ford solenoid, of course, because it's a Ford, and then the positive cable goes into the firewall and back out of the firewall to the battery. It's like a big kill switch. Just ridiculous things that really didn't need to be done. One of my favorite things, though, is the wooden spacer bump stops that they use, and they wire tied some rubber down here for extra bumpiness. I was out here working on it a little bit ago with my son, and I noticed, I don't know if you can see it really well, but that's solder on that. I don't know why you wouldn't just replace it, but that's kind of the theme for this whole Jeep. They owned a grinder or cutoff wheel, but they didn't own any grinders. So it had this big, huge, gnarly front bumper. It had this big, gnarly front bumper put on it with a receiver hitch. All of it like thick, like 1/4-inch plate. Just like way overkill for a flat fender Jeep. When I first got it, it had some really long shackles in the front that was probably the equivalent of like a 2.5-inch lift. I since have replaced those with some old Rancho lift springs and some normal shackles. But when I was putting the shackles on, I noticed that instead of having bushings, they had just driven the bolts through like a piece of lead pipe and used that for the shackle. So that's one of the reasons for tearing it apart, really, is I have to cut those off and undo all of that mess. I started putting a 2.5-inch Rancho lift on it, and now I'm going to revert it back to just stock CJ5 leaf springs in the front, and then just stock normal flat fender springs in the back, because I don't really, it really sets too high even with the 2.5-inch lift. And my ultimate goal for this thing is like kind of flexy, low center of gravity. I'm going to run my 31 1050 15 UTV boggers on it. That's the plan anyway. So it doesn't need to be super tall. They'll fit on a stock height Jeep. So that's what why I'm going back to lower leaf springs. But anyways, just the like this big overflow mount, like it didn't, I don't know, they didn't put a lot of thought into the things they did. I don't know if you can see it. They've got like a carrier bearing down here for the steering, really close to the oil filter. I had to run a super short oil filter. And then the bottom of the column doesn't have a bearing or a bushing in it, so that kind of flops around. And then to mount the column in place, they've just got wire tied around the column to the little frame brace on the body. Just super, super sketchy, not very well done stuff. I drove it probably about, I don't know, 4 miles one day, and then the old fuel system messed up on it and clogged up the carburetor and the fuel pump with rust. So that was what ultimately made it start getting torn apart. Because up to that point, I was just going to drive it as it was, but then it was just started finding too many sketchy things. So we're going to tear it apart and give it the normal ugly Jeeps treatment. Fix all of the stuff wrong with it. I've already kind of gutted the seats out of it. It had some like CJ5 low back Levi's edition seats that were welded to the flat fender seat frames. And of course, me being a big guy, I didn't fit in it. So it'll get some stock 3A seats and seat covers eventually. These guys were really not afraid to make their own stuff. This hood, while looking pretty factory, is a homemade self-bent, and something heavy must have fallen on it at some point in time and put a dent. And then I don't know if this, before it had the 302, had like a overhead valve motor in it, or if they just had like a tall air filter on this 302 and then decided they didn't like it, so they welded a thicker piece of sheet metal over the hood and warped it all to hell. It's got some sort of snazzy mirrors. When I got it, the mirror was on another bracket that stuck out. The mirror probably was out here somewhere, and just kind of super annoying. So I unbolted it and bolted it back to there. And got rid of a bunch of stuff. The windshield is kind of the same way. They welded some big, thick piece of sheet metal over the vent. I really like the articulating cup holder. I like that. That's pretty cool. It's got your typical, oh, it's not even a name brand shift knob. It's just a no name. I thought that was a Hurst or something. Okay, so it had like a line lock that somebody had homemade here. That's what all this holes is about, and I cut that out. I still got to fix the brakes. They loved labels. They just label makered everything in here. Whipper. They could not spell, apparently. That turns the gauges on and off, but I can't really tell because it makes them move no matter where I put it. The oil pressure gauge sticking through the speedometer, that was me. I just had to do that to get it running because I wanted to make sure it had oil pressure. And the factory electric sending unit wasn't talking to that gauge. It's got some sort of weird gas pedal. Maybe it's out of the car the motor came out of, I'm not sure. It seems like it clears the brake okay, barely, but it works, so we're gonna keep it. Nice little homemade galvanized steel thing over the T90. I'll be changing that. I'm actually probably gonna, I have a T18, Ford T18 that'll bolt right up to this 302 bell housing, so that's what it's gonna get for transmission. This other storing parts of my Suburban in here. The body, rust-wise, isn't so bad. There's a spot there that's normal. Other than that, though, it's pretty good. I haven't really pressure washed it or anything. It's still got this ugly roof on it that was part of the original top, and that's gonna come off soon. I'm kind of disgusted by it, but for now it's just gonna stay on there. I thought this was cool. It's got a old, if you can read that, Schmitty-Built official roll bar in it. And I thought, since these guys were hacks, that they had cut the bar, because I've never seen one where the bar went the other way, but I've actually seen one on Marketplace now that that maybe that's just how Schmitty built them, so you could tie through the back and the front. I don't know. So when the fuel system died on me, I was in a big hurry, and I really wanted to take this thing to the sand dunes. So in a hurry, I ordered a fuel cell. I think allegedly it's 15 gallons, but it's probably not over 10. So that's mounted in there for now. Probably Eventually it'll get a tank under the back, maybe, I don't know. Or I'll go back to the tank under the seat. I'm not really sure what I'm doing with the fuel tank as of yet. I really like having a back seat in a Jeep because I've got a few kids and they like to go Jeeping, so I'll probably put it back in there. Some of the, so yeah, this is the rear, the tailgate. Not a horrible job, really. It looks almost like a real tailgate, but it's super heavy, thick gauge metal, and I've got a couple of factory tailgates, so I'll be changing that. And then you just have all of the holes they drilled all over this thing. This whole body's actually been sheeted with another piece of metal, and probably right up here in front of the tire. You can kind of see it pooches out. And I don't know if I'll fix that. I hate it when they layer metal over metal because it just makes rust, but eventually, who knows? I doubt I ever paint this thing. Oh yeah, so the wipers, again, out of whatever car they had, hooked up some sort of crazy wiper transmission motor mechanism. It worked for about 2 swipes and then it died. So yeah, this is the neatest thing though. I've restored a lot of Jeeps and they always have part of the ashtray, but they never have the entire ashtray. And this thing doesn't even look like it was really used that much. That's kind of a neat find. It does have a Harrison heater in it. That was a pleasant surprise. I'll be trying to get that thing going again, probably. I might just pull it out and put it in my blue Jeep, since that's more of an original, that's an original build compared to this thing, but we will see. It came with these little, like, rusty baby moons and little tires. Right now I've got it sitting on one of those and 3 of these 700 16s. I think probably it will eventually get a 750 16 for the summertime, and then, like I said, the UTV tires for the winter. Eventually, someday, I would almost like to run like a 35 1450 bogger on this and like highline the hood, make it super low center of gravity. But that'll be a while before funds allow that to happen. What else can I show you guys? I really wish I'd done a better video. It's got some moss growing in it. I wish I'd done a better video when I was tearing the top off, because the thing was just like a time capsule. Sadly, I didn't. Oh yeah, I'm forgetting some of the best and worst parts. Down under here, I don't even know what they were doing with. I guess they were trying to guard the radiator. So there's that cross member they built, and then they built another lower cross member down here behind it. And I got a lot of once I get the radiator and the grill out of it, I got a lot of cutting to do to get all of this stuff and then get those frame rails cleaned back up. I'm gonna put a factory looking bumper back on it, and then I have a high-low winch mount from Brennan's Garage to run like the old Warren Bellevue, since that's my favorite winch, and I've got one laying around that's not doing anything, so it'll go right on here. Kind of already started hacking the wiring. This had the old asbestos coating factory 50s wiring on it, which I'm surprised hasn't shorted out and burned it down yet, because it's just like the sheath just falls off in the wind. Other things like the heater core must leak, so instead of looping the heater hoses, they went and bought enough fittings to make this U, because I guess they didn't think they could find a heater hose that had two different sizes on it. So that tells me we already got a leak in there. So also, this thing has wheel spacers on it, but it also has pretty nice horn hubs, and it's got 11-inch brakes already on it. So that's a nice little bonus. I do have the brackets to do the Brennan's Garage track disc conversion, so I might do that on it. I don't know. I'm kind of saving that. I have a Dana 30 and a bunch of parts that I wanted to put under the front of one of these, and this might end up getting the Dana 30 eventually. It's got limited slips in the front and the back axle. The front limited slip is actually pretty aggressive. Just driving it around in 4 low, you can definitely feel it in there. So it might actually be more of a locker than a limited slip. I haven't ran any part numbers. I just kind of drained it, saw what was in there, changed the oil. The first time I drove it, I kind of had the inkling that it must have something in it, because it was so hard to steer. And I thought, well, you know, it does have like a 100-pound front bumper and like a 200-pound winch hanging off of it and all this other metal, so maybe that weighed on them. But even with the winch gone, it's still pretty. So speaking of old man mods, this thing had a drawbar hitch and a PTO, which I removed and sold a while back. Here's this is pretty much the twin of what the front lift shackles look like, and these will be going away as soon as I get the front done. So this thing had big old air shocks and brackets on the back of it, and they worked, but there's no need for them, so those have already gone away on one side. This one will be going away as soon as I get around to it. And then this is what I'm talking about, the how they layered the metal of the body around there. And it just drives me nuts, because that's probably pretty nice sheet metal under there, and there's just really no rhyme or reason or whatever for it. But I don't know if I'll fix it now or if I'll fix it later. But there's also, I got this bar welded here. Like they had some stuff welded, the body's welded at one spot to the frame. That's got 4 basically 5/16 bolts holding on that air shock, but they're fine threaded. Like all the bolts they added onto this thing all had fine threads on it, and that's just super crazy. And then, if you can see it up in there, another little tie down hook, old man mod, crazy, whatever. Just something else for me to have to grind off later when I get around to doing all the stuff. Rear Dana 44, it's still a 2-piece shaft. It's got a limited slip in it. It's got 10-inch brakes, or 11-inch brakes. I keep calling them 10s, but they're actually 11-inch brakes. Brake lines look like hell, so it's gonna be getting new brake lines. That's about it. Okay, so I just tried to take the hood off and took out all the bolts, and the hood wouldn't come off, and look, it's welded on the inside and the outside for whatever reason, because, you know, extra safety or something. So I took a little time and I stayed out here longer. I got the driver's side fender off as well. And I remembered some of the weird stuff, like this Jeep 134 motor mount just bolted here for no reason. And just other things, but now you can get a really good view of the no bushing at the bottom of the steering column and just how really tightly everything, that's probably like a tractor PTO U-joint, I imagine, in there. You can see it had 2 fuel lines coming from the bottom of the original tank for whatever reason, and part of the start of the fuel line issue was it leaked gas right there, so I crimped it off. You can also see the remnants of the line lock that I haven't replumbed in there because I'm just going to change all the brake lines out. That's pretty much it for my little CJ3A. I don't know if I'll be posting many build videos. I'd like to do some build videos, but they're just so hard to film with one person. And in this tiny garage, it's not really conducive. That being said, though, I'm going to try to ramp up my production of getting out adventure videos with Jeeps. I've got a bunch of stuff planned. I just don't know when the time will happen. And I've also got a couple that I've filmed already that I haven't got edited. So that look forward to seeing those eventually on this channel. And probably you'll probably see this Jeep again once I really start getting torn into it. I have probably about another month's worth of work on the white M38 project over at my dad's shop that we've been working on for almost 3 years now. We just finished the paint job on it, and it's ready to start getting slammed back together. I might make a video with some details on that this next weekend if I get some time when I'm over there. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for being patient with me. I know I don't crank out videos quite as much as I should, but it's just doing this in my free time and as time and money allow. So, and as always, like and subscribe. Thank you.